Look at the current storm motion. And it looks like it slowed down a little bit here, moving east at 30 miles per hour. So we're going to put a tracker on that and push that off to the east. We'll track it from the leading edge at 30 miles per hour. That arrives in Haltom City in the next couple of minutes here. So about 12:17, Richland Hills 12:22, North Richland Hills 12:23, Eaterville you're looking at 12:24, Hearst 12:29, Bedford 12:32, Arlington 12:37, Tarrant 12:39, and Euless at 12:39 as well. So that's about 30 minutes, just under 30 minutes from places like Arlington, Tarrant, and Euless. Traveling right along and just to the north of 20, that northern 820 loop there through Fort Worth. That's going to be a spot to watch if you're traveling in that area. Of course, we're getting into these overnight hours. So not as many people traveling on the roads, fortunately. As we take a look, we're going to zoom back out here. We've still got that warning up along the Red River. This has been the focus of a lot of activity. Look how many lightning strikes just in that area. Still not seeing much in the way of rotation there though, and that is good news. It is a hail threat. That severe thunderstorm warning for Grayson County in effect till 12:45. I'll turn the radar back over here. Then I'm going to reorient everything, show you where our warnings are. So once again, we've got the warning for Tarrant County. Parker County, you're in the clear from that cell, but you are off to the east of the dry line, which means you're still under some level of threat as we head into these overnight hours. And we're going to continue to watch that the next couple hours. So we'll take a look. Once again, anywhere in that pink shading, that is that severe thunderstorm watch. So we're talking all of the Metroplex, really. We're talking Dallas, Tarrant counties, and then we're also talking Denton, Collin, into Hunt. We're talking Rockwall, Kaufman, Ellis County, down into Hill, Johnson, Hood, Somerville, Bosque County, Erath. Parker County not included in this, and I really think that's just because the dry line is just taking a little nudge farther to the east. So while this cell did start in Parker County, it was just reaching severe criteria as it headed into Tarrant. Van Zant, Rains, you're under that severe thunderstorm watch. Hunt, I think I mentioned, Hopkins, Delta, Lamar, Fannin, and Grayson counties, all under that severe thunderstorm watch. And once again, that is in effect until 5 a.m. as these storms fire up along and out ahead of this dry line. I'm going to switch over to my other computer here, and I'm going to show you a look at that latest model run that we're getting. Walk you through how things are looking to shake out in the next few hours. So here's where we are right now. Modeling doing a really pretty decent job of picking up right where these storms are located, and then it just continues to stretch out. And this system and these clusters of cells kind of start to merge and form more of a line. And when they do that, the threat changes a little bit and it becomes more of a wind threat. So by 4 a.m. this heads into East Texas, and it's not really our problem anymore. It's a problem for places like Mineola and Tyler. But the next couple of hours, we've got to continue to watch this as this moves right through the Metroplex. So currently headed through Tarrant County. Eventually this will get into the northwest sides of Dallas County first, and then spread across the rest of Dallas County. And eventually, as this starts to push into Kaufman County, it is beginning to weaken. But once again, this is going to be a wind and hail threat primarily. And we'll watch that. All threats are on the table here, but primarily talking a wind and hail threat. I'm going to show you here Here's our Storm Prediction Center outlook. Let's remove all of the other stuff. So notice the Metroplex is under that enhanced, this is that level 3 out of 5 risk for severe thunderstorms. And that is what we're going to deal with into these overnight hours. This is for really the next 5 to 7 hours this morning. That tornado risk, notice right where it's highest. It is highest right along and right through the Metroplex, and then up to the north and along the Red River. Anywhere you see that yellow there, that's that elevated tornado risk. This is where that most significant tornado threat lies at this point. This stretches from Tarrant and Dallas counties up through Denton and Collin counties and then up into the Red River. So portions of Cook and then into places like Grayson, Fannin, and Lamar counties, and really most of Red River County as well. The wind threat there, that most significant wind threat, Collin, Denton counties and up along the Red River. And then that hail threat, and that significant hail threat really includes a wide swath, the entire 35 corridor, the entire Metroplex. Now, what I mean when I say significant hail threat, we're talking hail in excess of 2 inches, but really I think we're going to be talking about largest hail upwards of 4 inches in diameter, which is what we saw a little earlier this evening. That was along the Red River in those areas where our cap broke. Our cap held in place for a long time. Off to the west of us, it was Parker, Palo Pinto, Stevens counties. Those areas were under a tornado watch earlier today, a watch, but that cap really held in those spots. And that was fortunate for us during the daytime hours because really, if you think about the amount of heat and instability, the amount of heat and moisture, we still have the moisture. The heat's starting to cool off a little bit, degree by degree. That helps us. That helps to weaken the instability little by little. If that cap were to have broken earlier this afternoon, that's when we get really concerned. You're in the peak heating of the day. That's when the instability is the very highest. As a result, you can get some very strong storms from that could have turned tornadic very quickly north of the 20 corridor and in some of those similar spots to where we did see 7 confirmed tornadoes yesterday. Fortunately, the cap held for us in those areas. But now what we're seeing at this time this evening, we have relatively warm air as we head into the overnight hours. We've still got the humidity. It is still muggy out there. And at this point, we've also got the influence of the low level jet, which means we have moisture from off the Gulf of Mexico, a southeasterly flow transporting moisture into North Texas. That additional moisture helps to fuel all of this thunderstorm activity, and that aids in the eroding of that cap. And I think that's what we're seeing here as this turns into more of a line and starts to head right through the Metroplex. So let's zoom back in here. River Oaks, kind of dealing with the bulk of that hail core right there at this moment. Downtown Fort Worth is going to see hail. The largest of the hail core is headed into Haltom City and is now just south of Saginaw. This cluster was moving more eastward. Looks like it's kind of gaining a southerly movement as well, moving right into the Metroplex. So we've still got wind gusts there around 61 miles per hour as this moves through Tarrant County. And our latest hail report, we've got hail upwards of $half sized with this cell here. And you can see right where those pinks are, those darker reflectivity colors. Dean Road, north of Fort Worth. Gold Avenue, Clinton Avenue, seeing some decent sized hail right out over that area. This is headed right into Altum City here in just the next couple of minutes. I'm gonna throw a track on this. Now this is a little hard to track because notice we've got multiple hail cores here. So we've got this hail core. We've got some hail up near Grapevine. We've got this kind of wide and long hail core. Now, the reason this is kind of turning more linear and spreading out this way is because of the influence of our upper level winds. So it starts as just a small cell and it spreads out as it moves east because of those winds in the upper levels. Those start to kind of drag that cloud top out. And so we get a longer storm. This becomes more linear. This becomes a wind threat when it turns more linear. And we do have winds in the 60-mile-per-hour range. We've got $half sized hail. So let's throw a track on a couple areas of this storm. This will move right out over DFW. This northern portion of this cell heads into Minner's Chapel at about 12:28, next 5 minutes or so. DFW 12:29, Estelle 12:34, Highland into Dallas County 12:45, Farmers Branch 12:48, Oldham 12:49. Now let's throw a track on this hail core that is closer to downtown Fort Worth at this point, traveling right along 30 now. Altum City 12:30, Eaterville 12:35, Handley 12:35, Pantago 12:42, Arlington 12:47, Tarrant 12:51, and Euless looking at 12:51 there as well. And moving at about 30 miles per hour, but it's been slowing down. So it's going to be a minute before this arrives into downtown Dallas, but I think it gets there eventually as we head into these overnight hours. Walk through here just in the last hour and beyond. So this really started to form about an hour and a half ago. So watch this just north of Weatherford. Watch how it starts at as just a small blob. This is about 11 o'clock. There we are. And watch how this just explodes. That's a sign of how unstable the atmosphere is and that the cap is finally breaking. And now we've got this line of storms that stretches from Grapevine back through Bedford, Altum City, River Oaks, and down into downtown Fort Worth. On the southernmost edge, this is impacting, it's really Rosedale Street, the south sides of Fort Worth there. Right along the Chisholm Trail Parkway, we've got some hail really headed right into downtown Fort Worth. And then Samuels Avenue, Main Street through Fort Worth. Altum City, we've still got some hail there. This stretches through Richland Hills, excuse me, through Hearst, Bedford. We've got hail in Bedford. We've got hail in Colleyville. We've got hail in Bransford, large hail in Bransford. We're talking hail about $half size there. Old Union, South Lake, Grapevine, Capel, starting to see that northern edge of that, and there's our most recent radar scan. Look how this just keeps spreading out as those upper level winds, essentially what's going on. If this is our cloud, and our winds are moving kind of like this in the lower levels, but you get into the upper levels and the winds are getting stronger with height. So as they get stronger with height, what happens, and I'm no artist, but I'm trying to explain what's going on and why this is spreading out. As those winds get stronger with height, that pushes this cloud edge farther out up top. And that's when we start to get this winds stronger up top here. That's when we start to get kind of the spreading out of that storm cell that started out as just a small blob, and now it's impacting a good portion of the Metroplex. In fact, now it's impacting about a 35-mile stretch from the south sides of downtown Fort Worth up through Capel, and that's headed into the northwest sides of Dallas County with some large hail inside of that cell. All of our severe thunderstorm warnings have been canceled along the Red River. So that is good news in those areas. Oh, no, I stand corrected. We've still got, it's just that back edge of this cell. This area along the Red River has really been hit for hours. Then as we zoom back out here, we now have that severe thunderstorm warning extending into Dallas County. That's in effect till 1:30 now. So that's another hour, and that's because it's not moving real quickly. That main pocket of wind is currently in Grapevine and headed right into Capel and Farmers Branch. We have 70-mile-per-hour winds here. Hail at this point is the size of quarters, so we're talking an inch in diameter for hail there. We're not looking at rotation, fortunately. Just the way the winds are stacked, this is really, as this becomes more linear, like it is, it becomes more of a wind threat. And I've been showing this just in the last 2 hours. If we play this back, how this started back out over Weatherford. And it started as just a small blob, and it continued to just explode in such a short period of time. With the amount of lightning strikes, let's take a look at how many lightning strikes are on that at this point. Okay, so we're down to 230 lightning strikes. That is a good sign. What I think is happening, we're getting this surge of wind. This is coming right off the dry line. We get that surge, but as it spreads farther to the east, it gets farther from the dry line. It gets farther from that lifting mechanism. And when we're seeing less and less lift, it's got less strength. What we're also running into is we're into the overnight hours. We're losing some of that daytime heating. And that is working in our favor because that is one of those instability ingredients. And as we lose that daytime heating, these storm cells tend to weaken, but we do still have a whole lot of moisture. We've got a large hail core right over Grapevine. Let's sample some of these reflectivity values. I mean, once you get over 55 decibels there, you're getting into some large hail, and Grapevine is getting hit with large hail right now. 66.5 decibels. We've got probably $half sized hail moving right out over Grapevine. Let's take a look at, so this is the hail core. This is delayed. So the next couple of radar scans, it will be over Grapevine, which is actually where it is right now. But let's take a look at how large that hail was back through Bransford. Penny sized there, penny sized there. Smaller on those outer edges. Marble sized near Colleyville. I think we're starting to get some decent sized hail right out over Grapevine. On top of that, we've got 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts in that area. And if we turn on our velocity scan, we can sample some of these brighter colors. 30-mile-per-hour wind gust there, 28 there, 33. So it looks like those winds may be starting to die down right close to Grapevine. Let's take a look close to Euless and Tarrant. 38 there, 44 near Tarrant and headed into Shady Grove. So we've got some gusty winds along this entire line. Let's take a look at the velocity scan. This is from our station radar in Parker County. Got a new radar scan right there. 52-mile-per-hour gusts there. This is right near Grapevine. That's where we were talking about that wind surge. Capel is getting hit with some strong winds. Estelle is going to. DFW is dealing with that right now. State Highway 121 as this heads out of Colleyville and in toward Minner's Chapel. 51-mile-per-hour gusts there. So we do have some strong winds right through that area. Zoom back out, show you where that warning lies. Notice it's for the east and northeast sides of Tarrant County, and then nearly all of Dallas County is included in this. Fortunately, up along the Red River, our warnings have expired in that area for now. That is great news because the Red River has been hammered for hours. We had grapefruit-sized hail in that area. It's been just a messy evening along the Red River. I'm going to show you a picture that one of our storm chasers got of. He was out near St. Joe, about 7 miles north of St. Joe. That is grapefruit-sized hail. We are talking hail 4 to 4.5 inches. Imagine softballs and grapefruits just falling and hitting your vehicle and your roof. You can imagine the damage that can do. It was also near St. Joe that our other storm chaser, Mike Prendergast, got just a couple-second view of a tornado touching down. And it was brief, not a real strong area of rotation. It was brief. But it touched down. You could see it for 3 or 4 seconds and lifted right back up. I'm going to go back to our model. If you're just joining us here, I'll walk you through what we've got going on because really what we've seen. Okay, I've got to get our model to come to terms with what's happening right now, like I was just showing you a couple minutes ago. Looks like we're running on a little bit of a delay on that model. Was just picking it up only a few minutes ago here. Let's see if I can get it to pull up. We're just seeing essentially this dry line is just west of the Metroplex, and as a result of that, our cap really is starting to erode. We're getting the lift from this dry line, and we have a very unstable atmosphere out across North Texas. We've got really warm air. We have the influence of the low-level jet, which is transporting Gulf moisture into North Texas. And that moisture just aids in storm development. And I think that moisture is a strong influence on this cap starting to erode at this point this evening. Even with the loss of that daytime heating, we saw something similar to this last night, close to about 11 o'clock, where just at the last minute, we had a final tornado warning under the influence of that low-level jet. And I think that's what we're seeing at this point. I'm going to zoom in here and take a look right at that hail path. It's right over Euless, over 635 in Dallas now. Sample some of that hail. That's not what I want. Here we go. So that's sub-severe there. Okay. This may be a sign which would be right in line with what we were just talking about a couple of minutes ago. It looks like the hail is starting to get smaller as this heads into Dallas County, which is great news. And I think really the main reason for that is because as this heads into Dallas County, it gets farther from the dry line, which is off to the west of us. And as it gets farther from the dry line, it loses that lifting mechanism that it needs to continue to lift higher into the atmosphere. So you can see that orange box, that is that severe thunderstorm warning in effect for the east sides of Tarrant County and for much of Dallas County. Hail back through the the east sides of Parker County was over an inch, about $half sized hail, which was the original warning. I think really the reason that warning is still in place is because of the winds. We have still got wind gusts around the 65-mile-per-hour range headed into Farmers Branch and Addison. Let's take a look at that. Our velocity scan, and we'll zoom back in. Right over Addison. That area. There's Farmers Branch. Try and sample. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Yeah, we've got some strong winds, 60-mile-per-hour winds right over Farmers Branch, Carrollton, Addison. South of Capel, some strong winds there, not far from DFW. It's headed right into Addison, crossing 35E. So those are some strong gusty winds. Hail is getting smaller. That is good news. We've got wind gusts in the 55-mile-per-hour range near the University Park area. Some gusty winds through Dallas, but they are a little bit stronger on that northern edge. And really, as we've seen this cell turn more linear, it is shrinking though. I think what we were talking about is exactly what's happening. This is getting farther from the dry line, and it's weakening as it does in the way of the hail core. But take a look at how this is starting to get kind of that bowing aspect, that bowing line there. That makes it even more of a wind threat. And that is headed into Irving, Carrollton, Highland, Farmers Branch, eventually into the University Park and Highland Park areas, and that will head into downtown Dallas. We've still got a bit of a hail core north of Handley, right out over Eaterville, in fact, just passing Richland Hills. And that severe thunderstorm warning continues to shrink as it does track farther to the east. Now, if you're just joining us, you'll notice a lot of pinkish red highlight there. That is a severe thunderstorm watch. That is in effect for much of North Texas. That goes until 5 o'clock in the morning. Just as this dry line sits off to the west of us, we're waiting on a cold front that will eventually get here tomorrow morning. That cold front is going to be a welcome sight because it's going to bring us drier air and a calmer weather day. As we head into our Tuesday, we'll see the sunshine and highs in the low 80s. It's going to feel comfortable. But till we get there, we've got this last shot, this last run at this severe weather trying to make its way through North Texas with that dry line set up just off to our west. It's kind of draped in a northeast to southwest fashion. And so what we're going to have to watch into these overnight hours is really just going to be that threat for damaging wind gusts and large hail, at least quarter-sized hail. And then wind gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour, which we have already seen. gusts in that range and above that, really. We've seen wind gusts as high as 70 miles per hour just with this cell that's really starting to stretch out across Tarrant and Dallas counties. The southern edge of that is through Tarrant County still and not moving real fast. In fact, it's slowing down. Started out moving at about 35 miles per hour. I'm gonna get a look at that latest storm movement. We're gonna take a look at how quickly that cell is moving. So the hail is shrinking, but those winds are still strong. You can see that with that Boeing line there. 65 mile per hour winds. The northern edge of that storm over Irving, that's moving at about 45 miles per hour. It's the southern edge of that storm that is not moving quickly. Okay. So we've got those 65 mile per hour winds located right out over Irving. Right where that Boeing line is, you can see where those stronger winds are. They stretch from Hebron through Carrollton, Farmers Branch, Highland, into Irving. And then we've still got a little bit of a hail core out over Eaterville. But that hail is dropping below severe criteria. This warning is still in place for those winds, those strong gusty winds. Minimum severe criteria is wind gusts in the 60 mile per hour range. For hail, it's quarter-sized hail, which is 1 inch in diameter. At this point, we're at 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And that hail core continues to shrink. That is good news because we know the kind of damage hail can do, but you also have to think of the amount of damage a wall of wind can do. And that'll be the concern as this heads into Dallas County. We'll be watching the threat for tree damage. This can knock power lines down. And so that's what we'll continue to watch as these cells just try to fire off of this dry line that's just off to the west of us. We'll continue to keep an eye on it. Please zoom back out here. You can see the Boeing aspect that has maintained, but this is the only storm cell moving through North Texas. So we've got to watch how this instability shakes out, because in theory, we are losing that daytime heating, but we do still have a lot of moisture. Those dew points, if you step outside, you can feel it. It's gross out there. It has been all day. And we're still dealing with dew points that are in the low to middle 70s out there. You start getting sticky when you get into the low 60s. It's muggy out there, and we've been feeling warmer than those air temperatures. We've had that heat index the last several days. And those dew points, they're still up there. We've got that severe thunderstorm watch. That's everywhere that you see the pinkish red color. So that's including most of the Metroplex. That includes Collin and Denton counties. That includes Dallas and Tarrant counties. And then we get into Johnson County. Right there, Ellis County, Hill, Bosque, Hood, Somerville, Erath County, Kaufman, Van Zant, Rockwall, Hunt, Hopkins, Collin County I mentioned, Grayson, Fannin, Lamar, Delta. The Red River is finally getting a break. We just have isolated shower activity at this time along the Red River. And it's been several hours of just the Red River just getting hammered with large hail. We had one brief spin-up tornado, wasn't on the ground long. But now we've got this, that bowing line. You can see that start to bow. Let me play this back since it kind of began. I'm going to remove those warnings so you can see that a little bit better. Let's play this back over the last 2 hours here. As this started in Parker County, it was a tiny little cell, and then take a look at how that just starts to bow out. This is a difference in wind in those upper levels. It's that wind shear. That wind shear is that change in wind direction and speed with height. Fortunately, we're not seeing rotation with this, but that bowing line segment, that's when you start to really deal with that wind threat, that gusty wind threat in that area. The hail is now down to about a ½ inch. So we're talking about nickel-sized hail right through that area. So it is still carrying hail, but it is sub-severe hail. The wind, though, is still maintaining that severe criteria. And that severe thunderstorm warning is in effect. For Dallas County, that's primarily where that threat is, but this does now include a portion of Collin County. You'll notice it's just starting to spread out even more. This is getting into Allen at this point. I don't think, let's stop this. I don't think this is really going to impact McKinney much. I think it'll start to push east by that point. We're starting to lose a little bit of our lightning intensity. That is a good sign. That is a sign that this is weakening as it moves farther to the east here. But this still stretches along 30 back through Tarrant County. This is quite the long bowing line at this point. We were measuring that a minute ago. This is 42 miles long. 2 hours ago, when this storm just started as a tiny little blob, it was 3 miles long. Now it's 42 miles long. This is all the same cell. It's just spreading out with those upper level winds. The most frequent lightning we saw was on the west sides of Tarrant County, about 360 lightning strikes. At this point, we're down to just over 200 lightning strikes, but that bowing segment, those strongest winds stretch from Irving through University Park up into Plano, and they're going to stretch into Allen as well. Let's sample that velocity scan right through that area. And in fact, I think I'm going to switch over. Well, that's 65 mile per hour wind gust right through Richardson, 60 mile per hour winds through Renner, 74 mile per hour gusts just south of Plano. Let's take a look closer. Plano, 53 miles per hour, 74 there, 69 there. The latest radar scan. So getting some strong winds into Garland, Wiley, Parker, Lucas, Allen. Headed into Mesquite, Sunnyvale, McClendon, into Rockwall County eventually. Let me switch things over to our station radar. See what that can pick up. It's a little bit closer to this activity here. 60 miles per hour near Farmers Branch, 50 there. We've got 52 miles per hour just south of Highland Park. This is really a strong bowing segment. These winds are strong all through this area, and it's a wide swath. Winds are still strong, but starting to die in Irving. Starting to get a little bit weaker. Still got 50 mile per hour gusts reported right close to DFW. So again, that's that velocity scan. We're not seeing rotation with this. This is a wind threat, which straight line winds can still do some significant damage. And you'll notice anywhere we're seeing those pinks, those higher reflectivity scans, we are still seeing hail. So we've got hail Likely some small hail through Arlington and headed right into Arlington, the North Arlington area. Some small hail through Irving, Highland, meters in toward Richardson. We've got some smaller hail there. And then likely talking Marble to nickel-sized hail through Cowley and Renner up into Collin County. That's headed into Plano. Richardson really dealing with those really strong winds right now. That stretches down into Gifford and University Park. Winds are a little bit weaker south of there into Arlington. It's still gusty in that area. Just not quite as strong as those winds are up to the north. Now, fortunately, as I zoom out here, not seeing much else firing off of the dry line right at this moment. So that is good news for us. I'm seeing reports of power flashes through Denton County. Hail has picked back up a little bit. Really going to be on the northern edge of that Boeing line up into Collin County, where we've got hail upwards of 3/4 of an inch. So we're getting close to quarter-sized hail again. That's that inch in diameter that is right at that severe level threat, right through that area. So it's starting to pick up once again. And once again, anywhere you see those pinks and reds, that's that severe thunderstorm watch that is in place. We're just going to keep watching this Boeing line as it moves through the area because it is impacting a wide swath of the Metroplex at this point. Lots of large population through Dallas County. And so we're starting to see those gusty winds on that northern end of Dallas County and up into Collin County. And when you deal with those straight line winds, that wall of wind, that can do some damage. This warning is now going to extend into parts of Hunt County. Looks like we're still seeing those reports of 65-mile-per-hour winds right through that area. Zooming back down to that Dallas County view. Hail core is moving into Plano. So again, that is about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And then winds in the 65-mile-per-hour range. So we're talking about penny-sized hail right through that area. And then those winds gusting to 65. The strongest winds right here in that Boeing line, so stretching from Allen down through Plano, headed into Garland, University Park. That is where I'm most concerned about the winds, and those are tracking to the east. And in fact, let's take a look at how quickly this is moving at this point. Moving east at 45, so let's track that. Moving east at 45 here. That puts it in, let's see, Naaman at 12:57. That's here in the next 3 minutes or so. Murphy looking at 12:58. We get down into Pleasant Valley looking at 101. Wiley 103. Liberty Grove 104. Lavon Lake 106. Rockwall 110. Lavon 111. Millwood looking at 112 there. So that's when those strongest wind gusts start to arrive in your area. And that's just on that portion of the line. Because it's bowing like it is, we've got to put a track kind of on this portion of that bowing line as well. So Bethard 12:56, so just in a minute here. Garland 12:59, Naaman 101, Centerville 102, Pleasant Valley 105, Rowlett, you're looking at 105, Dalrock 108, Liberty Grove 108, Glen Hill 112, Rockwall 113 there. And then we've got quite a bit of lightning stretching back through Arlington. This is just a long line that started as just this tiny little cell, and it's now expanded into this 42 miles wide, long, stretching from Fairview in Collin County down into Arlington in Tarrant County. So this stretches through a good portion of northern Dallas County, impacting places like Irving, University Park, Meters, Bouchard, Richardson, and then up into Plano, where we've got a bit of a hail core in Plano, penny-sized hail right through that area. And that severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 1:30 at the very least. Of course, we've seen the extension of this warning as it moves farther off to the east. It just depends on how long it can maintain that strength. And it is running into a very unstable environment. We'll sample some of those dew points once again. So we've still got dew points in the low 70s. We still have some really moist air. What is cooling and dropping are those temperatures, which are now into the upper 70s. Now, in order to really maintain that strong thunderstorm strength, it's more ideal to have temperatures up into the 80s, but we're seeing this air cool because the sun is down. So we're getting that loss of daytime heating, which in theory starts to weaken that instability. But we've had more moisture transport into our area because we've been under the influence of the low-level jet, which is amplified during the evening. That's when we get in the mid and upper levels a southeasterly flow that brings in a lot of moisture off of the Gulf of Mexico. And so you get that added moisture, and that helps to increase that instability. It's resulting in this. Take a look at that though, down at the south end. It's starting to come apart right there. That's a sign that this will continue to weaken as it tracks farther to the east. It's getting farther from the dry line, and it's starting to take more of a northeastward track. So still stretching from Allen down into Plano, Garland, really the northern half of Dallas County. That's been the movement. So we have the extension of that severe thunderstorm warning out of Dallas County. This includes a portion of Collin County and then a northern portion of Rockwall County and extends into Hunt County. So that includes Greenville. This will travel along 30 as we get into Hunt County. It's going to be a minute before it gets there though. That severe thunderstorm warning for Hunt County is in effect until 2:15. So that's still an hour and 15 minutes out here. We've got that hail core. I'm going to sample some of that. I still think we've got some decent sized hail out over Grand Prairie. We'll sample some of those reflectivity values. Yeah, I think we've probably got close to severe sized hail, if not just below. So probably right near the penny sized range near Grand Prairie. Starts to do damage when we get into that inch in diameter. We're just below that, but winds are still gusting as high as about 65 miles per hour. So that is that Boeing line is starting to show signs of weakening, and the hail threat is starting to shrink. There is still hail in this storm, but it is starting to shrink, which means the updraft is starting to weaken. This is pulling away from the dry line. It's losing heat, that daytime heating, it's losing that. And so we are starting to see a bit of a weakening trend. We do still have a wind threat here. Looks like winds are now down to about 60 miles per hour, and that storm movement still tracking off to the east, 40 to 45 miles per hour. And you can see it falling apart there. It's not bowing out quite as much. As it gets toward Nevada, Wiley, it's starting to break apart. So it's still a strong storm. Can still certainly do some damage if that wall of wind, those strongest winds, hit your area. You worry about tree branches, kind of those trees with weak roots, those older power lines especially, as that wall of wind hits them. So as you head out tomorrow morning, that's something to be mindful of. While it's still dark out, and I think this will kind of be, it looks like this will be about the last of the development as we get into these overnight hours. So once we get through this line, that's about it. And then our cold front moves through tomorrow, and that drier air starts to filter in. I'm going to take a look at our current power outages because, of course, we've had quite the few days of severe weather coverage. Parts of North Texas have picked up quite a lot. This is really the first strong cell that's moved through Dallas County this weekend and into the start of this week. Let's see, county power outages. So we've got quite a few power outages through parts of Tarrant County. Now, of course, not all of these are going to be as a result of weather, but some of them likely are. 8,500 power outages through Tarrant County, about 100 through Parker County, about 100 through Dallas County. Similar story for Ellis County. And then we've got some power outages up along the Red River, but fortunately, they're in the hundreds. I honestly would have anticipated higher power outages than that up along the Red River, just with the amount of storm damage that we've seen. And the amount of storm activity, I should say, the hail and the strong winds that we've seen through there all day today. It's fortunate that that's all we've got in the way of those power outages. So let's turn on that reflectivity scan again. Notice I'm going to draw the dry line again. Notice that we don't have, that dry line's pushing a little farther east. We don't have additional development firing off ahead of it, which is good news. So drier air is starting to kind of undercut this. That will weaken storm activity significantly. Out ahead of it, where it's still very moist, that's where the more unstable air is. But this dry air is advancing, and that should work to cut off the storms that are getting just off to the west. Anything that would try to fire up just west of the dry line. Of course, this is off to the east there, but notice, I think we're starting to get some dry air in this storm, cutting off that updraft. And we're just starting to see it fall apart. It's still a bit of a wind threat. We do still have a bit of a bowing segment there, close to Garland and University Park. We've still got a little hail there, but it's smaller at this point. If I So $half sized hail close to Garland. We've got quarter sized hail, and this is a little delayed here. But we've still got some close to severe sized hail through parts of this area. That may be a little bit of an overestimate. But you can see on reflectivity, you've definitely still got a hail core close to Garland. What can also happen too, as this storm starts to fall apart, we get a bit of a downdraft. And that downdraft will just kind of release a lot of hail all at once. I don't think we're quite seeing that yet, but it's getting close. We're just watching this storm really just come apart. Down to 148 lightning strikes. That's down from 200 just a couple of minutes ago. We'll continue to see that lightning count decrease over the next few minutes here. We do still have that severe thunderstorm warning in place for Collin County and for Hunt County till about 2:15. But I think by the time we get to 2:15, this is weak enough that we probably see that end early anyway. Irving, and really just south of Irving, that's still over Grand Prairie. This end of that storm is just not moving quickly. So Grand Prairie dealing with some downpours there. While we're at it, let's take a look at the rain totals. Just in the last 24 hours. In fact, let's go beyond that. Let's go through the weekend. So we're gonna go five-day rain accumulation. Up until an hour ago, Dallas and most of Tarrant County was just in a big hole because there had been no rain, really, through the Metroplex. The bulk of the rain had been along the Red River and off to the west of us. We're looking at 3 inches of rain into Palo Pinto and Stevens counties in the last 5 days. So this really started later Friday. Near Decatur, about 3.5 inches there. Portions of Clay County, upwards of 3.3. Portions of Montague, almost 4 inches of rain there. You get into Cook County, over 4 inches of rain through parts of Cook County. Clear some of these off here. 4.7 right close to the Red River along Cook County, in Cook County. Lots of heavy rain right through this area. Parts of Denton County. This was a cell that set up here late yesterday evening. Dropped 2.8 inches in a short period of time. And down close to Ennis, about 2 inches there. At this point, this cell that's moving through the Metroplex, that's how much rain that has dropped in just a couple-hour time span. So we zoom in here. You look at places like Keller, picked up about 3/4 of an inch in the past few days. Near Arlington, let's take this back just in the last couple of hours here. So in the last few hours, that cell that's moving through has dropped about 1/3 of an inch right close to Arlington. Little bit of a delay on this. Back through Lake Worth and Saginaw, over 1/2 inch there. Upwards of 1 inch of rain as this moves toward Lake Worth. So this is carrying quite a bit of moisture in a short time span, and still dropping rain through Dallas County and into Collin County. But it's going to drop less rain as it continues to advance because it is getting weaker. Still at about the same amount of lightning strikes there, but we're watching it fall apart. There's a complete separation right here at this point. That line was really holding together as it moved through Tarrant County and into Dallas County, but now it's just starting to weaken a lot. Looks like we've still got wind gusts to about 60 miles per hour. Those are starting to move out of Dallas County into Rockwall and portions of Collin County. Now we do still have that severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 5 a.m., but I really think that for the most part, outside of some isolated activity, I think this is about it for us. I think we'd be seeing more activity coming in off of the dry line by now if more was expected. We've still got some activity along the Red River. It's a lot weaker than it was earlier. But those showers through Lamar and Red River County have developed just in the last hour or so. A lot of lightning strikes as those storms cross the Red River. More instability there. They're a little closer to the cold front through parts of Oklahoma. But just in the last 30 minutes, we've gone from 240 lightning strikes to 150. And that just continues to wane and it continues to break apart. And I think most of the wind threat, let's take a look at that velocity scan. Going to remove those lightning strikes. So it's those gusty winds right through Garland headed into Centerville. Still got close to 60 mile per hour winds, 65 there. It's a little bit of a radar hole. So still some gusty winds. It looks like these winds, though, may be starting to drop below severe criteria as they head into Rockwall. So we may see this warning expire a little early. There's that next radar loop. We still have a hail core, and in fact, I think that hail core is increasing a little. Centerville, Garland, Dalrock, Liberty Grove area. That's a large hail core right there over State Highway 190 and Toller Road. This is near Pleasant Valley, really between Pleasant Valley and Rowlett and Dalrock, where we've got some of those higher reflectivity values. 63 decibels. We've probably got quarter-sized hail at least right there. Pennies. Walnut there. Okay, so it still may be starting to shrink. And as it dissipates, it's going to just drop all that's left inside of it. So it'll drop some heavy rains here in the last 30 minutes or so as it continues to advance northeast, and it'll just slowly start to dissipate. So Garland, again, still seeing some hail. I still think we're seeing some hail right through Garland. Quite the hail core picking up, but some of this is heavy rain too. As some of those winds push that rain out of that line, kind of those downburst type winds. This is headed into the northeast sides of Dallas County at this point. There's that next radar scan. So notice at this point, this portion of that line is starting to fall out of the warning. Not as much concern with that area because it's a whole lot weaker. It's no longer part of that main system, that main line. At this point, that main line that's that south edge of it. And then on the north edge, that stretches clear into Farmersville in Collin County. And that severe thunderstorm warning extends into Hunt as well. But I think we'll see some significant weakening by the time that really heads into Hunt County. Looks like we've still got about penny-sized hail with it. and we are just at severe criteria for the winds. So moving east about 45 miles per hour. The concern will be roof damage, damage to trees, branches, potential damage to power lines. So as you wake up into those morning hours, that's something to take note of. You want to be mindful of what might be out there, what debris might be out there on the roads when it's still dark out. So again, this is pushing into Rockwall, and we're getting less of a bowing segment here. The strongest winds are right through Rockwall and will head over 30 near Millwood, Royce City, and Fate. But I think we'll probably see here shortly the cancellation of the warning in Dallas County, as that just continues to weaken. Let's throw on that lightning counter again. Still at about 157 lightning strikes. So it's holding together that strength that it's had over the last 15 minutes or so. But it is weakening significantly. So penny-sized tail right through this area still. That's about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Still not anything you want to be out in, but I think at 1:17 in the morning, not many people are going to be out anyway. 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts right through that area, and again, that's advancing eastward. Moving at about 45 miles per hour. All right, so this is going to continue to move east. I'm going to continue to keep an eye on it back here. That severe thunderstorm warning still includes the east sides of Dallas County, portions of Rockwall, portions of Collin, although I think the wind threat is wrapping up in Collin County. I think the wind threat is really starting to wrap up in Dallas County, and Rockwall is getting some of those stronger winds, and then eventually into portions of Hunt here in the next few minutes. So again, I will continue to keep an eye on things back here. We'll hop back on the stream as needed, but I think overall, while that severe thunderstorm watch is in effect until 5 a.m., we're just not seeing much in the way of new development out along that dry line, which is good news. We do have very moist air out over the Metroplex and out over North Texas, and that certainly does aid in that instability factor, that instability that's needed to create this storm activity. The dry line is still stationed just off to our west, but what we are losing is heat. It's still muggy out there, it's still fairly warm out there, but once you start to get temperatures that drop into the 70s, you just lose some of that momentum, which is great news for us. Let's sample quickly some of these current temperatures. We're down into the 70s in those lighter oranges, low 70s there, upper 70s through Denton County, 76, that's Johnson County, or 78 in Dallas. You can still get a strong storm there, 73 though, in some of that rain-cooled air through northern Tarrant County. But we just really are seeing a weakening trend. Penny-sized tail again right in this area. I think we're going to wrap things up on the stream here, but I will hop back on here if this storm picks back up in strength, which I just don't expect. Rockwall getting that hail core right now. Royce City, Millwood seeing some hail there. But the wind threat is starting to fall apart. We're not seeing as much of a bowing aspect from this line. And I do think those winds are starting to weaken. We've probably still got wind gusts close to the 50-mile-per-hour range, yeah. 51-mile-per-hour winds near Burrow. 51 north of Rockwall. Rowlett. About 60 miles per hour there. So that is just that low-end criteria for that severe threat. severe thunderstorm level, that's when you're talking wind gusts to 60 miles per hour or higher. And then hail up to quarter-sized or larger. And the hail, it looks like for the most part, has dropped below that. And this has primarily been a wind threat for the last little while. So this wind threat is going to cross into Rockwall, and that'll head over 30. Those gusty winds are especially a problem for the high-profile vehicles, and then a concern for tree branches and roofs and siding. But I think that hail is starting to weaken, and we're just not seeing as much of a bowing segment from this, which is a good sign that that wind threat is weakening. And certainly through Dallas County, I just don't see much of a wind threat at this point. It's still gusty out there, no doubt. But as far as damaging wind gusts, I think that's headed into Rockwall and waning and headed into Hunt. So we'll continue to keep an eye on things back here, and we'll keep you up to date. We'll hop back on the stream as needed. You can find us here. If any new warnings pop up, we will let you know. But right now, I don't see that. Meteorologist Lauren Bostwick will be here in the morning, keeping an eye on things through our morning show, and she'll walk you through that activity. But it looks like that severe thunderstorm warning is now wrapping up for Collin and Dallas counties, and you can see why. It'll remain in place for Rockwall and for Hunt, where that wind threat is the strongest. But when I say strongest wind threat, we're still just talking a wind threat that is waning, as high as 60 miles per hour. So very gusty wind still, but continuing to wane. So I'll leave you with a view of that radar there. We'll hop back on as we need to, but we will watch the expiration of that severe thunderstorm warning through Dallas and Collin counties here just in the next couple of minutes. That severe thunderstorm warning continuing for portions of Rockwall